So hi everybody and welcome back to the Unreal Engine 5 full game tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 20 and in this video I want to talk about the player controller. Normally you don't need to define a player controller because it is working out of the box, but sometimes you will change it or you will call special things from the player controller. Then you have to create your own player controller. But before we go to create our player controller, let's find the player controller again here in world settings. You can open up it here on the window tool, go here down to world settings, then this tab will open up, and then you go here again to the game mode, and you see when you select the game mode subclasses here has one of them is the player controller. And this class by default is set here to the player controller, and when you click here the scope symbol, it's not opening up, and this is the reason why you can't define anything right now in this. It is probably defined in C++ and it's not available right now for us, but we can create our own player controller. And how we do this, let's create our own player controller. Let's open up here our production folder. Let's go and create here a new folder. Let's call it player controller, perhaps player controller. And let's open this up, right click, and we go again to the blueprint classes, and then you click on this drop down, right, player. By the way, it is here in the comment section as well, but you can use this one or this one, it's the same thing. You write here player controller, or just use this one. Here is the player controller as well. You select this one, and then you call this what you like. I call it PC. PC stands for player controller underscore, and let's say my player controller. And then you can open up this player controller, and you see the player controller looks like a normal blueprint, nothing special. But let's compile and save, and let's go back here to our world settings, and then you go down to the player controller, and then you select your just created player controller, PC, my player controller. And when you start your game, you see it is working with that too. And the reason for that is this player controller is based on the default player controller, and it is taking all the informations from there. You can open up your player controller again, and on the right side here it says parent class is the player controller. So you have all the default settings there. And now if you are interested, you can change this default settings here in this player controller, because now we have a blueprint section, or we can go here to the function section and can click here override and override functions which already exist. So this function here you can read in the documentation what they are doing, and then you say, hey, I won't change anything here, then you change. But normally they are already default sets, are very good most time. So only make this when you know what you are doing. And yeah, the question is now, okay, we have here a player controller, we have changed till now nothing. Why the hell I have to define a player controller when I'm not changing anyway? The answer is you don't have to. You can just use the default player controller. Then you just can't open it up, but you change anyway nothing, then you can just use it. Then the second question is then, okay, let's say I have my own player controller. What is the benefit about this one? And like I said, the benefit is you can change here or call here special things. For example, now you have here this player controller, it's more like a manager class again. And when we go back to the world setting, you can see we have here our game mode. This is our, the mode when you load your level, the game mode starts. And this game mode has its, and all the other classes which you see here are more or less manager classes. How to manage the default pawn here, then you select your created pawn here, then how to manage the HUD, then you create perhaps your own HUD. And here we are creating our player controller, again a manager class. So you put there special things in what you would normally put in a player controller, and these special things are like anything with input, controls, or even widgets. So, and in this video I want to add here a widget. The question is, hey, wait a minute, we talked in the last video about the HUD class that is managing widget, but there is one kind of manage which you can call from the player controller. And which widget is that? That is the gameplay widget for the character. And why is this so important? Why, or let's say why you can call it from the player controller. First of all, you don't have to. You can call it and manage it from the HUD class. Let's open this one up again. This is our HUD class. You can manage everything from here when you open up and manage every player as well. But you can also manage it from the player controller. And how I can manage my widget on from the player controller and why I would do this, perhaps if you are doing multiplayer. So for a single player, not so important, but for a multiplayer, you have to create anyway a player controller, because this default player controller is more or less working on single player very well. On multiplayer, it's better to create your own player controller for every class, and then you can specify what the HUD looks like for every single player differently and something like that. But we are not creating a multiplayer here, so not too much worry about that, but it's just good to know. And now I won't call here the character widget. So when I start this game here, for example, you can see we have no widget here. And this widget for this character, I want start with the player controller, or like I said, you can make it with the HUD, or like we do it, we combine this a little bit. So here I'm in my player controller, but before I go there, you create a widget, and I made a dummy widget in my folder. You can make a dummy widget as well, which I called, let's see what I called this. You can see it's just test player controller, and this, oops, that's not the one. Sorry, here in the menu, and I think test. So you can see I put, there is just a canvas here and then 2 buttons and nothing more. So this widget for the player, for the character, we will define and style a little bit later. But again, this is just widget creation. I hope by now you know how to create any widget. You can see here's nothing in coding section. It is just created this canvas, and then I throw in a text and a button just to spawn it in the player controller. Okay, we have here our widget. I hope you create any test widget as well. And now back to our player controller, and I say I want to call this HUD widget for my character. How I make this? Careful, you have to go check HUD if you have set up here any widget for the character here on new game. So when I open this one more time up, my character, and you can see in this HUD has here a check at start. And at start I check which level it is. If it's level 1, if it's false, then if it's not level 1, for example this one, then I will call, if this is level 1 and this is true, then I will call nothing. But if it's false, then I will create a widget, which I assume it's the main menu level. And here is already a setup, and here you can call your character widget as well. For example, you can say now here, let's say for all other cases here from this OR state, you go here, you just say create widget, again normal, and then add to viewport. And this time you're adding your test widget, which we just created. So you can see this is just the other case. Let's test this out. And I have to go fast and see this one. That's fine. Start this, start, and you see I have my widget here, the text block. This is just a text block. It's a very bad widget, F8 here, this one and this one. So you can see we added it through the HUD, but this time I want to add it to through the player controller. So how I make this? Very easy actually. Instead of calling here, like I said, you have to check if you want manage it through the HUD, or you want to say this player controller, this player has special settings, inputs and character widgets and whatever. Then you can make this again. We can still use the HUD here, but this time we are creating a custom event, which means we create, you right click here and then you write here custom event. And then you call it what you like. I called it player HUD. And then you say, okay, this player HUD should have this, and then whatever you want to call. So you can see I called just a widget again, but instead here with managing through level check, and so I will call this special. So I have to call this from anywhere now, because this one is called level begin, the HUD. And when starts the HUD again? The HUD starts here. When the game mode is created, all the other classes will create it, and all the level begin play, when you see here something like event begin play, will be fired, which means when the game mode is loaded, this one will be loaded afterwards, and then it checks. But here in our custom mode, we have to call it on purpose and with special settings if we want, but we make it very easy. So we have now our custom mode. We go here to the player controller, and what you can do now is just call it. So how we call it? First of all, right click here, get HUD. Here is our get HUD, and then we cast this to our HUD, because this HUD is the general HUD and is asking now which HUD you want to use. My HUD, so cast to, what is my HUD called? HUD HUD. In my case, that was what we created there. And all time promote this to variable. The reason why we promote this one to variable is you can use this one here too, but then you would all time drag it out from here. And if we have a variable, we can just get this later where we want and use the variable instead. So we would make something like so and then drag it from here all time. It's more convenient. That's why we make all time this promote to variable. And now you can just call it from here, this just created function, player HUD. Oops, sorry, player HUD. So let's do this one as well. Player HUD, player HUD call, and you can see we are still using the HUD, but this time we're calling it from the player controller because it belongs him with special settings, which will be activated here. But we know the widget is here, so when we check all the widgets, it's still here. Very nice, very nice. Good. And don't forget, when you do something like this, select all, press C for a comment, and say calling, oops, calling player controller, something like a player controller. All right, and then we are finished already for this little section. So I wanted here introduce just a player controller, because you will see most time you don't use it really, because you can use just the default one. It's perfectly fine. And here, like I said, you can change then many things what you like. And of course you have to set up this this widget a little bit. Probably we do this in the next video when we set up more things for our game. So that was it already, and with that said, I stop here the video. And if you have any questions, like all time, write in the comment section. See you in the next video, and like all time, have fun and never give up. Bye.